We open to a view of Seven recharging in the cargo bay. The computer wakes her and she begins a personal log about her day's activity, so we're having a 7 of 9 episode. The first task is fiddling with some sensors. A simple enough job, but it's with Kim, so she's allocated extra time to account for his pointless wittering. In a minor nod to a previous episode, Kim's in the mess hall playing Kalto with Tuvok. In fact, he's been playing all night and believes he has a chance to win. Seven completes the move for him, just in case you missed that this is a 7 of 9 episode, and we leave with Kim in a bit of a huff. They walk along a corridor as Kim talks about Seven being former Borg to remind you that this is a 7 of 9 episode, but even the universe has had enough by now and makes the whole ship do a wibble. Up on the bridge we learn that Voyager's been knocked out of warp speed and all of the computers have had their readouts replaced by an Omega symbol. It's pretty serious shit too, as the message it bears refuses to be opened by Chakotay, as he's not of high enough rank. Or perhaps it just hasn't forgotten that Chakotay is still technically wanted for terrorism. It doesn't matter, as Janeway pops out of her ready room and says she'll take care of it. Additionally, she wants all sensor data sent to her personal computer and for Voyager to hold position. And she won't answer any questions about what's going on either, not yet anyway. She retires to her ready room again and locks the door. Her voice print ID to unlock the message is accompanied by military drumming, just to let you know that shit is very serious indeed. The message tells her that something called the Omega phenomenon has been spotted nearby and she needs to go and sort it out. The Omega Directive demands it. Oh, and nothing else matters till this is sorted, so we'd best get on it. The mission is highly classified, according to Chakotay, an effect somewhat diminished by him saying it in a room filled with bystanders. Maybe the briefing room was already booked for a jumble sale or something. B'Elanna's ordered to put some shieldy thing around the warp core, Paris is told to make a shuttle ready to fly into some really hot stuff, and Seven is told Janeway wants to see her. This comes as no surprise to her, so she knows something we don't. We learn what it is in Janeway's ready room. There's a super dangerous molecule called Omega that nobody's ever heard about, despite it being something that all Starfleet captains know. Which is how Seven knows about it, because the Borg have assimilated some captains and learned about it that way. Anyway, because Omega is so terribly, terribly dangerous, perhaps to the entire quadrant, Janeway's ordered to go and destroy it, no matter what. Slight problem, Seven doesn't want to destroy it. She says Omega is super useful, and the Borg could have proved it if their experiments had been completed. I mean, okay, those experiments didn't get completed because Omega kaboomed a shitload of their ships, but that's just a technicality. It's not the most convincing argument, and Janeway is adamant that we should stop it. As Seven already has the knowledge Janeway isn't allowed to share with others, she's in a position to help. Seven agrees, saying it's because the Borg consider Omega to be an example of pure perfection, and she wants to see it. I'm sure being ordered to destroy her god won't cause any problems in the future. Time to get started. After visiting the doc to get some special radiation meds that he would only provide under orders, she goes to see Seven in her cargo bay to discuss super-secret things. I guess that jumble sale must still be running. The secrecy might not matter shortly anyway. Seven's been poking sensor logs and discovered that there isn't just one Omega molecule, but hundreds. Such an increase in complexity may mean getting the rest of the ship involved. Well, more involved than they already are. They're performing tasks but don't know why. Kim and Tuvok are working on a special firework with a gravity warhead, and Kim can't resist the urge to engage in rumours ranging from fighting the number species to opening a wormhole and getting home. Why either of those things would be in super-secret orders that were made before they got stranded isn't a question the rumours address, which might be why Tuvok dismisses them. Or maybe he just doesn't remember who Kim is. As Janeway's finalising her plans in astrometrics, she's telling Chakotay what to expect. She and Seven will depart in a shuttle and either return in a few days, or there'll be a massive kaboom and Voyager will have to scarper sharpish. But Chakotay calls bullshit. He thinks orders for a captain to engage in the most dangerous tasks on their own doesn't smell right, and he says so. He's right, of course. Janeway's taking it upon herself because she doesn't want to risk the rest of the ship and crew. Chakotay tries to convince her that this is an unreasonable approach, not just for herself, but for the others too. She's not the only one who swore to uphold Starfleet rules, and excluding others risks affecting the mission outcome. In the face of this, she concedes. That jumble sale must be over, as we've decided to use the briefing room. The senior staff, minus B'Elanna for reasons entirely unrelated to her actor going into labour, are hearing all about Omega. Back in the day, a Federation scientist synthesized one of the molecules, perhaps as a power source, but knowing humans, probably to blow shit up. If it was the latter, he got what he wanted, though not quite as intended. The research station he was on got proper fucked up, and over 100 other scientists carked it as a result. Even worse, it completely arsed up subspace in the area too, which means warp speed doesn't work. This, Janeway explains, is why Omega kabooms are so serious. They don't just blow things up, they potentially balls up space travel too. Obviously, that's not good for anybody, let alone a crew that are trying to get home, so we're going to go over there and destroy Omega before it gets started. To that end, Janeway visits Seven in her storage area to see how firework modifications are coming along. The answer is not at all. She's instead working on a containment device for Omega. Janeway's initial frustration at this is deflected when Seven explains that it can be modified to create a science thingy that'll break Omega down without needing to kaboom it if their fireworks don't do the job, assuming Seven chooses to use it that way, of course. Janeway lets it go, and we instead get a little Borg history about their fascination with Omega, that its representation of perfection holds a meaning for the Borg that's almost religious in nature. Chakotay interrupts and calls Janeway to the bridge, so she leaves the project in Seven's hands with carte blanche for whatever resources she needs to make it work. I guess we've fully forgiven her for that whole manslaughter thing a few episodes back. We've arrived at the solar system where the Omega signal was found. There's a pre-warp species on one of the planets, but the signal isn't coming from them, and a lot of subspace wibbly suggests shit went bad for whoever was dicking about. It also means we won't be able to scarp her if shit goes bad for us, too. We track the Omega stuff to a moon with a breathable environment and have a closer look. Shiny blue stuff suggests things aren't fine, and a bloody great big explosion looks like a good suspect for the reason why. Whoever it is, they've fared better than when humans dicked around with Omega, as some of them are still alive. The place is crawling with radiation though, so there's no telling how long they'll last. Janeway orders an away team to get dosed up with those radiation drugs she ordered earlier and go to look for survivors. And she'll be leading the team, that way she can look for Omega while she's there. Janeway and Tuvok arrive with 2 extras, which is odd as she ordered Paris to come as he's a field medic, but let's ignore that for now. Before we teleport them to sickbay for treatment, we find out they have some more of that Omega stuff in a test chamber off to one side. The room's melted shut, so Janeway wants to cut her way in to destroy it. Tuvok points out that this action constitutes a prime directive violation, but she overrules him. Omega is more important than any other order, apparently, and we make a start opening the chamber. Back on Voyager, it's all kicking off in Seven's cargo bay. As equipment is set up, Seven herself is giving orders to the crew around her, even going so far as giving them Borg numerical designations. That feels a bit too on the nose for me, but I guess the writers included it just in case you'd forgotten that this is a 7 of 9 episode. Chakotay arrives to check on progress, and Seven informs him that the containment unit will be ready shortly, before asking about Janeway's progress. Chakotay updates her, also telling her about the survivors we have in sickbay. They're a source of data, so naturally Seven wants to go and see what she can learn. After forcing the matter with the doctor, who doesn't want his patients disturbed, she manages to get access to the lead researcher. He tells her they made millions of the Omega molecules and were almost able to make them stable. Seven's complimentary of their technique before demanding his assistance. He's all for it, until he learns that her orders are to destroy them. He says it's not just his project, but a potential fuel source for his species. They've nearly exhausted all other resources, which rather begs the question of why they're wasting what remains by using spacecraft to perform research on a different astral body, but let's ignore that for now. Those same spacecraft are already on their way for a rescue mission and will be unimpressed if we destroy Omega, and he pleads with her to reconsider as she leaves. Back in the rubble of the research facility, we've finished cutting through that door. Janeway and Tuvok open it to discover some shiny blue. Rather more than expected, in fact, which means that modified firework we made isn't going to be enough. There's a little chat about the scientific value of this discovery, but Janeway shuts it down by saying that it would be arrogant to try and contain Omega, given the danger. It must be destroyed, and Seven's option is the only one we have left. And that might be a problem, as Seven's gone off script. She's telling Chakotay about the upgrades she's made to the containment unit based on data from the research guy. She now thinks she can contain Omega instead of destroying it, and wants to try. Chakotay is skeptical, saying her orders were to make something that can neutralize Omega, and Seven reassures him it can still do that if Janeway insists. Knowing we still have that as a backup, he's willing to listen to what she has to say. We're shown balls on a screen becoming a little more orderly, and Chakotay seems impressed by it, so I'm assuming it's a good thing. The problem is it's only a simulation, and she wants to try it on the real thing. Chakotay thinks that's a touch premature and declines, causing Seven to beg him, saying it's the first thing she's asked of Voyager during the 9 months she's been aboard. Chakotay wants to understand Omega's importance to her, so she recounts her time with the Borg. To them, Omega was essentially their prime directive. Understanding it was the single most important goal of the collective. It's essentially their god, and whilst she's no longer Borg, she still has the drive to know the face of Omega. It's a concept that Chakotay can understand, and he says he'll tell Janeway of her progress, but can promise nothing more than this. Those alien ships are nearly here, and they're not picking up when we try to call them, which seems rather odd when they've had no way of learning our intention, but let's ignore that for now. We still need to teleport Omega into Seven's containment jobby, but we'll have to do it sharpish, which means going into the planet's atmosphere. We'll need shields down to teleport, and Paris tells us that's going to start melting the hull. We do it anyway and succeed in teleporting both the Omega molecules and the away team onto Voyager. As we about face and Scarpa, those alien ships give chase. They're going to catch up with us soon, somehow, and that gives us about 15 minutes to solve the Omega issue. Chakotay tells Janeway about Seven's work, and she goes to the cargo bay to try and settle things. She arrives to find that Seven is destroying Omega as she had asked, but it's going to take a while. Seven asks for the chance to stabilize some of them instead of destroying them all, causing a bit of a ding-dong between them. But Janeway manages to convince her that her aversion to the plans aren't a deliberate attempt to spite Seven, but a necessary precaution for the entire area. Seven relents, and we check again on the progress of destroying the remaining Omega molecules. Slight problem, we still have loads of the buggers. A more serious science thingy will destroy around 50% of them, but could also bugger up the containment unit. Janeway thinks that's enough. We'll destroy as many as we can in here, decompress the cargo bay so it farts the whole thing into space, then hit what's left with that special firework we made earlier. Job's a good 'un. Well, job's mostly a good 'un. Those alien ships have caught up and are threatening us. Being told that we're totes legit and everything's great fails to convince them, and they start pooping green at us. Which is obviously not good for Omega. Any power wibblies could cause the whole thing to kaboom, though at least we take those other dickheads with us too. Not to worry though, as we manage to destroy enough of Omega that the firework will take care of the rest. Well, probably. Janeway orders the decompression, but while we wait for it to cycle, science things happen to the containment unit. Omega is taking matters into its own hands and has decided to play nice, stabilizing itself without any external influence. Seven gets the chance to witness her god as the computer warns them about the imminent decompression. Janeway convinces her that leaving might be a good plan, and they both leg it. The containment unit is ejected and Chakotay farts the special torpedo at it as Voyager scarpers at warp speed. I guess we might have just killed everybody on those 2 ships as well, so that's another species the Federation is probably at war with now. Janeway's making an encrypted log entry about those aliens we kidnapped, saying we've arranged to get them back to their homeworld, which is a nice afterthought. At least it's nice until you remember that we've just condemned their whole civilization by destroying the last option they had for a power source. On the plus side, this means we probably don't need to worry too much about that war we just started. In Professor Gimli da Vinci's holodeck workshop, Seven is staring at a crucifix because fuck subtlety. Janeway arrives and we have a little discussion on the nature of belief and the concept of epiphany as we fly away. This one felt like a bit of a mess for a few reasons. I don't much care for the central premise of the Omega Directive. Not because of the idea that Starfleet would be willing to do some shady shit for the greater good, as I'm partial to a bit of the old moral grey area. It's because of the danger itself. Making the stakes too high can, paradoxically, make it not matter at all. The concept of, there's this molecule that can just destroy all interstellar civilizations is sufficiently overblown that my mind simply bounces off it. Perhaps that's because I know the show's creators would never allow something to so drastically affect the Trek universe, making it difficult to consider the idea a serious threat. Say what you like about Discovery, and I have my own issues with it, but they were at least willing to be serious about problems affecting the whole galaxy, even if they did give it a 300-year safety buffer just in case. Elsewhere, I take issue with Kim's behaviour. Kim's the single most straight-shooting, no-nonsense crew member on the ship. He's the sort of person who, if he farted on the bridge, would write a formal letter of apology to Janeway. The idea that he's the one willing to ignore orders simply because they were given by Seven just doesn't work for me. There are a few bits that felt sloppily written, such as the Borg referring to Omega as particle 010. Why would you call the most important thing in your life number 2? And I thought we established it was a molecule, not a particle. I could go on and have a whine about how I find Seven's abruptness being turned up to maximum rather tiresome in episodes that focus on her, but rather than belabour the point about what I didn't like, let's instead end on something interesting. When Janeway and Seven are discussing the discovery of Omega, Janeway uses the term, "Omega caused quite a stir among my own species." My species. Not our species, not the species to which she and Seven both belong. My species. I wonder if that was intentional. Probably not, if we're being honest, but I'd love to believe so, as it's a potentially fascinating insight into Janeway's opinion of Seven. Such a potential hint of prejudice in Janeway would have been worth exploring. End of episode.
I spy with my little eye.
Sparkles.
You what?
It's Sparkles.
You don't know that?
Yes, I do.
Ow.
Because it was Sparkles the last time, and Sparkles before that. In fact, it's been Sparkles the last 65 times, because Sparkles is all that you can see in here.
Well, I was just trying to keep us
In fact, how are you able to see anyway? You don't have any eyes. We're just subatomic particles right now. This sketch doesn't make any fucking sense. Balls to this. I'm going for a pint.
Bit rude.
I heard that.
Ow, you haven't got any ears. Woof.